Hello, hello, and welcome. This is another episode of Chatting with Humans, and I am your host, Darrel-Lynne. It never gets old doing that, if you were wondering. I love introducing this podcast. Today, I had the absolute joy of sitting down with Alana Joy Newton. Yes, joy is built into her name. I have been kind of in the same circles as Alana for a couple of years. I mean, we've co-authored in a book together, The Sovereign Volume 2. We've worked together in through the publishing house, Sovereign Acres, and we're connected through social media and we have a lot of mutual connections. But this was the first time I got to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with her. And first of all, I was really looking forward to this. I think Alana is not just a very unique individual, but she's very thoughtful, very grounded, and has not just a unique energy, but a really beautiful energy. Probably one of the most thoughtful, attuned people that I know, even though it's mostly been at an arm's length. I've admired her for that for quite a long time now. So it was really cool being able to sit down and have a conversation, talk about a publication that she is leading right now called Living with Grief. We talk about grief, we talk about her story, and we cover a few things. And Alana is she has a really extensive background in the health industry, like being a nurse, a psychotherapist, but she's also a very, very spiritual human, and she really melds those worlds and those worlds that she's lived in and knows. She's melded them and she's woven them in her own unique way. We also talk about we briefly talk about the perils of social media. I think both of us being sensitive people and trying to navigate social media. It's a beast unto its own, and we talk a bit about that. But no surprise here, Alana just brings her beautiful energy to this conversation, and it was wonderful chatting with fellow human on the things that we did. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. All right, Alana, welcome. Today I'm chatting with Alana Joy. And Alana, the first thing I need to address is your last name, Joy. It is not lost on me that this is part of your name and built into your
Yeah,
mechanics. Is this your
yeah.
actual last name?
It's actually my middle name.
Okay.
Yeah, so my last name is Newton, and maybe this is what we'll get into. Who knows where we'll go today? I'm just excited to be here. But,
Yeah.
in my, awakening number one, in my first dark night, I connected with my middle name, Joy. It was given to me by my grandmother. And I've always felt her presence. She died when I was 2. So I never really knew her, but I always felt her presence. And I was born 5 days before Christmas, and Joy to the World was playing on the radio. And she was so excited to have 3 older brothers, and I was the first granddaughter, and she was just so excited. She said, "This is my joy." And it's been a real anchor for me, especially the last few years, to
Yeah.
remember that my essence is joy. Yeah.
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 Does your grandmother with you? Do you feel her presence with you?
I feel her often. Yeah, there she is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's like right there. Wow, that's quite the way to come into the world with joy just tied into your name
Mhm.
and then carrying your grandma's legacy 5 days before Christmas, like what? All the things. But
Mhm.
you did mention something how that has been of essence and importance
Mhm.
for you in the last few
Mhm.
years. Do you want to talk about some of that and
Mhm.
what you've been walking
Yeah.
through?
Just before I got on the call with you here, I've just started learning about gene keys. Do you know much about gene keys?
I've been dabbling a bit myself.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still very much a dabbler. Yeah. But it is speaking to me very deeply. And so I was just doing a little dabbling before you and I got on, and I was looking over my life purpose, which is gene key 25, which is love. And then it goes on to say that with this key, with love as my life purpose, my path will be one of struggle and suffering, and it will be to find my way back to love, to be able to support others in their path of struggle and support them with coming back to love. And so this has been the truth of my life. I have been, in many deep, dark places. So knowing that this feels meaningful for me, having this understanding of my gene keys. And then with Joy being in my middle name, it's like I almost feel like that was a gift to me by the universe, by my grandmother, by the stars, by the higher whoever, right? Knowing that I was entering in this life of struggle and that to have Joy right there to remind me. Um,
That's not a coincidence. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Do you believe in coincidences at this point?
I
No?
don't. I don't. You?
No. I actually
No.
go by I call it DT, divine timing, and everything's just falling in divine timing.
And I'm noticing those are your initials as well. I mean, without the Lynn, but
That is true. I do that is my first and last name initials, but I try not to like own it like it's mine.
yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah,
DT.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
coincidence just that makes things sound random, and I don't
Mm,
think any of this is actually
mm-hmm.
random at all. So
No,
it just kind
no.
of sells a lot of moments short if we
Yeah,
just equate it to coincidence.
it's so true. I think of like the miracle of the human body, and like it can't just be coincidence. Like I just, and I have a background in nursing. I worked in the medical field for many years, and I would say that primarily conditioned in a very like mechanistic understanding of the body. But my own life has guided me into, I mean, the miracle of our bodies, and it's not just random. Like it's not just random. So if our bodies aren't random, then this universe isn't random. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a circumstance or instance where, it may, in one person's optics, it may feel random. That may be it may be a very intentional thing that's happening for someone else from a different optic or perspective. And I think
Yeah.
there's always a meaning there, regardless for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what's happening or what's going on. But
Mm-hmm.
so I did read your bio and just some context here.
Yeah.
So I think I started becoming more aware of who you are through our co-authorship in the Sovereign Volume 2. I'm sure I
Right.
had seen you on at least a couple podcasts prior to us writing in the book together.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we've been connected through social media and then through Sovereign Acres. So
Mm-hmm.
there are
Mm-hmm.
some threads that have kind of
Yeah.
connected us over the last couple years for sure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to obviously you sent over your bio, so I'm like, I'm gonna take a peek. And there's something that stood out to me. I'm just gonna read it.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
says your mission is to support as many people as possible through the process of excavating their authentic self and connecting with a renewed sense of meaning and joy.
Yeah, it's going. Yeah.
Joy. Yeah.
So, going back to the gene keys again, I'm just a dabbler, so I'm not going to claim to have a deep understanding, but now looking, like even when I wrote that bio, I didn't know about my gene keys, but now reading my bio through the filter of the gene keys, I can appreciate that, really my whole life, this has been my purpose and it's been expressed in different ways. Yeah. And so, I worked as a nurse for many years. I was a nurse for 16 years, but I was hearing like whispers to that, and we maybe get into that story, maybe not. But I shifted out of that profession for lots of reasons and
Yeah.
became a psychotherapist. And I've been doing that for almost 20 years now. And then the last few years, shifting again from, kind of the more rigid box of psychotherapy into something more expansive and where my soul is not regulated in the way that I guide and support others. I've come into a much deeper trust of my own sovereignty, of my own intuition. My training and credentials, of course, have helped me in my support of others. And I feel like I can kind of like lose those training wheels and practice in the way that feels in alignment with my own soul. And so the last few years I've been supporting, I still work as a psychotherapist. And I've also been expanding into, I don't even know what to call it, soul guidance kind of work
Hmm.
and supporting people with taking off all those layers of conditioning, which I know you know a lot about too. I reread your chapter recently and I was just like, I mean, chills every time I read it. And so I know you know the experience of like the social conditioning. So this is how I guide and support others to kind of, start to see where they're conditioned and how their conditionings are um inhibiting access to their authentic self and guiding them back into love.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. That's beautiful work,
Mm.
but it's your soul destiny work, it sounds like. That's what it sounds like to me. It's,
Yeah,
like, very clear.
apparently it is.
Yeah.
Some say the Gene Keys.
Yeah, Gene Keys Richard Rudd's such an interesting guy. Have you seen some
Yeah.
of his talks and, like, lives he does too on Instagram? He's the epitome of, like, breathing and pausing and taking space and thoughtfulness. It's just like
Right?
yeah, it's a vibe,
Yeah. It's a
and
vibe,
it's
and,
so
he actually
important.
yeah, he reminds me quite a bit of my dad, who died almost 10 years ago, and his death was definitely a significant piece catalyzing my awakening. And so, yeah, when I can like, connecting with Richard Rudd's voice and, his essence, I can feel my dad. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ye
So, it's clear that, like, Gene Keys are lighting you up right now. I took a brief pause on the Gene Keys because I got into some other things, but
Mhm.
it was really lighting me up as I was starting to explore my own chart a few months ago,
Mm.
and just, like, the concept, like, the shadow and the gift
Mhm.
and how we move from that place where it's maybe a challenge to something that's actually serving us and then the greater
Mm.
too.
Mm.
But
Mm.
what else is lighting you up right now? Is there
Hmm.
anything else?
Hmm. Yeah. Grief.
Grief? Yes.
Grief. Yeah.
Yes. Can we talk about that? Your book. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm lead author for Sovereign Acres' upcoming anthology on grief. I wasn't seeking the opportunity as life works, right? It's not like I was going out and looking for, a role such as this. But when as the universe does, it just kind of presented itself and it was a full body yes. And I'm not of the belief that if it's not a full body yes, then it's a no. I'm not, because I have a yeah, my own appreciation of the language of the body and stuff like that. So, but anyways, whatever. It was a yes. It was clearly a yes, even though my mind was like, "What? Like, where is this going? What are you doing? Like, how does this fit into your business plan, all the things, right?" But it was such a clear yes. And what started to come through really strongly for me was this collective repressed grief. And I mean, I can see it in my own life, and then I can see it in the collective as well. The repression of grief. And, often grief is thought of as death. And that's certainly one form of grief, death of a living human or another being. But there are so many forms of grief that often go unnamed and unacknowledged even within self. And, where does that go in our bodies? It
Mm,
gets trapped when it's not named and held and witnessed by others. So these messages started to come through really clearly after I'd accepted the sole assignment of the lead author role, and the women writing their stories. I mean, it takes so much courage to share these really vulnerable places, as you know.
yeah.
It takes so much courage and to hold the space and witness the like healing that's happening live as they're writing it. And then when it's released into the world, it's such a privilege to
Mm.
be part of that collective healing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you didn't take this I don't wanna say duty, that sounds a little but it was a duty. It was a service that you were taking for the people, the cohort that was coming into your book. I know you were taking it very seriously, but in such a beautifully held way because you know the magnitude of what's behind this. It's not just a story.
Mhm.
This is these are our lives, and this is the
Mhm.
actual emotions we've lived through, and
Mhm.
that's not something to kind
Mhm.
of toss around
Yeah,
and disrespect. So I really admired
right.
because obviously I had a bit of a behind the scenes look
Mhm.
at your approach to the selection of the authors and the stories and the container
Yeah.
that you wanted to create for that. And it was really wonderful watching you hold it
Mm.
with the reverence that you did.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. I personally don't know what kind of stories are we're gonna see emerge from this, but imagine it's probably going to be quite powerful. So are
Mhm.
you in the writing
Yeah.
process right now, or are you kind of at the tail end now?
So we are in the writing process. We're just coming upon the end of first draft, so completion of
Okay.
first draft.
Okay.
Yeah, I have been quite stuck with my story, to be honest.
Mm,
I have been holding space for others. And as I know often is a pattern of mine, I hold space for others and kind of forget to hold space for myself or
mm,
neglect to hold space for myself. Just in the last few days, I've been leaning in more to the supports available to me to write, and what's coming to the surface to write. And I've never spoken about it before anywhere in any podcast. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if this will come up today because I think it's meaningful if it does. And it also gives me a little practice with sharing this.
yeah.
What's coming up as the grief story that kind of keeps knocking for me is it's an insidious grief. It's an invisible grief. It's not one that, others might observe, but my body has taken record of this grief. And it's the experience of childhood emotional neglect. And, yeah. And, as a kid, I grew up, as so many of us, and I imagine you could probably relate to this too, grew up being told I was too sensitive, that yeah,
Uh-huh.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, and so, I came to understand myself as a sensitive soul, and I could call that a highly sensitive person, HSP. I could call that an empath. I could, and so I could adopt a few labels to have a better understanding of what that meant and appreciate the gifts of it and all the things. And this acknowledgement of what I experienced in childhood is another layer to shed some light on my sensitivity and why I may have been told that I was too sensitive. And it was not, it wasn't necessarily a true too sensitive. It was a lack of attunement with my caregivers, specifically my mother. She wasn't
Mm,
able to attune to my needs. And I don't say this out of malice or blame. And this is one of the reasons why I don't tell this story because, my concern and compassion for her eclipses my grief.
mm,
And that grief has lived in my body since pre-verbal. Like it's, that lack of attunement set up my nervous system to be in a state of anxiety. And then we know what happens to a nervous system that's continually in that fight, flight, freeze response.
yeah.
I'm just connecting all these dots now. I don't think it's coincidence that I developed all these, health conditions that I did, with this being my core experience early on. So this is the grief that I'm starting to find more words for. And even in with the few that I've shared it with, there have been tears for those that I've shared it with because they could so
Mm,
relate to my experience. And they were so grateful that I'm naming it because now they can name it too. And again, it's not about blame at all. It's not about blame at all. But it's that validation. Like this is a grief I've been carrying my whole life.
yeah.
The grief of a loss of something that I mean, I didn't even know it was missing because I like never had it,
Mhm.
and it was never there. But my body knew it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what's starting to take form in my chapter. We'll see if I have the courage to share it.
Oh, wow. First of all, there's a lot of relatability there for what you're sharing. For myself, I know that this is
Yeah.
going to resonate for a lot of people because I think I've had multiple conversations at this point with women, not because I've only had a
Mm,
couple here on the podcast, but just in life.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's such an overwhelming theme is being called we're too or being told we're too sensitive and growing
Yeah.
up with this understanding that sensitivity or a belief that sensitivity is a negative thing.
Yeah.
And there's a negative
Yeah.
emotion and connotation tied to that when really that is
Yeah.
our superpower.
Yeah.
And it was badly misunderstood, not just by the people
Mhm.
around us, clearly, but by ourselves.
Mhm.
And our body, I
Mhm.
mean, kinda our body kept the score on that one, right?
Absolutely. And so, as a psychotherapist, my area, my kind of like my niche, my area of practice is women with chronic health conditions.
Mm,
And because that's been my lived experience as well. And like the overlap is like if you look at the Venn diagram, right? It's undeniable that I'd say that everyone I've met. Now that can't be everyone. That might not be everyone in the world, but every person that I have met and guided and supported who has lived experience of chronic illness identifies as being air quote too sensitive.
mhm,
And so then, often bringing in like, an understanding of being an HSP or an empath. I mean, there are lots of different lenses we can look at this sensitivity through, has been validating for them because then
Mhm.
starting to recognize and appreciate the sensitivity is actually it is a gift. It's not a burden. But I do find it interesting, the overlap. I've been observing this for almost a decade now. The overlap of sensitives and chronic illness. And so then relating
Yes.
that to my own experience, I'm like, well, of course, my nervous system came into this world probably even before I came out of the uterus and probably even before. And like I look at the epigenetics and ancestral trauma piece of it all.
Mhm.
So when my body was finally birthed into this world, I was like my nervous system was set up for sensitivity, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
would you say wide open? Just like receptors open? Is that how
Yeah.
you kind of see sensitivity? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very attuned, very aware. I mean, we can put pathological labels on it, and the
Sure.
medical model does. The medical model will call it hypervigilance and all the things.
Mhm.
And not to say that at times it isn't challenging. There are times, right, that I'm like, oh, oh, like what was that look? What was that look? Right.
Yeah.
And like these, we can catch micro expressions. We can, people who are very sensitive, like they pick up on everything
Yes.
and maybe sometimes misinterpret, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. Um, so I think it is a gift and it's, I think having more and more awareness of it, it's almost like I'm just thinking what a metaphor might be. It's not coming up for me yet. I often think in metaphors, but it's not dropping in yet. But yeah, yeah, it's
So
I
you
would
I
say
what
yeah.
I'm hearing is like bracketing together sensitivity slash awareness.
Mhm.
We're just there's an attunement there that is existing on like a really hypersensitive level.
And I would even say as humans, like we're all well, I mean, we're all capable of this, right?
Yeah.
And I think of the physical body as well. Some bodies might get a label of, multiple chemical sensitivity or et cetera, whatever. And so pathologically, we're looking at them that their body is too sensitive to things in the environment.
Mhm.
Is it the body that's too sensitive or is it like sounding the alarm for what's not good in our environment?
Mhm.
So I often refer to people with chronic illness with all these different labels as the canaries in the coal mine. Because
Right.
when you think of it, these chemicals, like they're not good for anybody. Like they're not good for anybody, but there are some bodies in this world that like the alarm bell rings,
Yeah.
right? And so I think every body has this sensitivity, but for lots of, I'd say understandable reasons have become hardened too, right? And so some bodies can get through this life without those alarm bells going,
Mhm.
But some bodies, like I think this is like the
Yes
base,
and
like this is
no.
how humans are supposed to feel.
Arguably, like we could say maybe they're presenting just like later in life, or there's like this accumulation of, let's say, residual trauma that just doesn't present as maybe like someone that is attuned as like the canary,
Hmm.
but in some way, shape, or form that will express inevitably at some point.
I mean,
I mean, if we
probably,
look
yeah,
at, just even look at the rise of like Alzheimer's,
yeah,
dementia. I
yeah,
feel like that in
yeah,
itself is its own
yeah,
like long-term byproduct in a certain way, right?
yeah. I do too. I do too.
No, I think what you're saying though is this chapter that you're writing is going to land and be
Mm,
a necessary voice for a lot of people that have lived that with that especially as a child being given you're too
yeah,
sensitive.
yeah.
It's going to open a pathway for more acknowledgement of like, because here's the thing,
Hmm.
I love my parents. I praise them to the high
Hmm.
heavens because
Yeah.
they did the best that they could, and they did really an exceptional job. So yeah, like you said, this isn't about blame. This is
No.
just we have to acknowledge our own reality, and that doesn't diminish what
Hmm.
anyone else has
Hmm.
done
Hmm.
or what they tried
Hmm.
to provide.
Hmm.
It's just the acknowledgement. And
Yeah.
I mean, my mom's the first
Yeah.
my parents are the first to say this didn't come with like a manual.
Right?
And so, like, no knock
Yeah.
to them, and I've never held blame for the things that I've had to walk through with my own
Yeah.
mental health.
Yeah.
I've just definitely needed to have my own personal acknowledgement in that of what may have
Mm.
contributed, because that has helped
Of
me on my healing path.
course, helps you have more of an understanding, right, for yourself. And
Mhm,
I mean, and the importance of validation, like that, it's kind of like it's the first step. It's the first step of healing physical body, emotional body, right? It like the validation that this, yeah, happened. This is true. This is real. This is, and then our defenses, right? Then when we feel validated, then we're able to go deeper. And I'm thinking of, yeah, I mean, my story is definitely not about blame. And so I'm very conscious of how I'm telling it. And it is a gift because then I can parent my children differently. And it's like, this is happening like live in the moment, right? Like I can see in my like family history how I'm changing the script. Like I'm changing the channel that we've been on.
mhm,
And so I'm definitely not doing it perfectly. And I was thinking about, my daughter's 14, and I was thinking about maybe she at a time is going to write a chapter about her
mm,
experience of me as a mother.
mhm,
And can I accept that? Can I be okay with that? And yes, I mean, right now I'm saying yes, I will be okay with that. But, it's the acknowledgement that like I'm not doing it perfectly either. And I see some of the patterns, the way that I was mothered. I see some of that coming through, and so can I
sure,
see that without shame? Can I see that without shame and do whatever I can to do it differently?
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, the acknowledgement there, for
Yeah.
sure. That's wonderful. There was something I wanted to ask you, and now it's slipping my mind.
Mhm.
Yeah, so okay, so your official title, can you remind me? It's
I mean, yeah, titles are
psycho
funny. I mean, so I'm a psychotherapist. Yeah.
psychotherapist. So you know you know the terminology by the book, let's say.
Hmm.
But the impression that I get and the understanding I have, at least, of how I perceive you, Alana, is there's, and I don't want to say the term woo, but like the spiritual
Yeah.
aspects, the non-physical aspects. Like, are you somewhere in the middle? Do you like pulling in from both? Like, how do you approach
Hmm.
that for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question, It's a good question. I'll still occasionally affectionately refer to it as woo. And I refer to, that the spiritual as woo, as a bridge, for those, because often I am supporting those that the kind of like that metaphysical spiritual understanding of our existence is very, very woo for them. And
Right.
so I'll say it in that way to kind of, support them to bridge over to to open to that possibility. I don't think it's woo. Like I'm pretty yeah. I don't I don't think it's woo because it has been so much a part of my experience now that I've woken up to it.
Yeah.
And I can see these air quote woo experiences like throughout my whole life. And so yeah, I don't it's not woo in my life anymore. And I also still hold, a lot of, I don't know, what should I say? I mean, respect for, our understanding of the world through more, the materialistic view or like the physical world, right? We do have a body, we legit have a body, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes what I observe is those who are more immersed in the woo might bypass that we actually legit have a physical body. And so I'll
Mm.
give an example of this. The work of Louise Hay has been pretty influential for me. You're familiar with her?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean she's pretty influential in the woo world, right? When it
Yeah.
comes to understanding health. And it has definitely offered a layer of understanding in my own healing that has been really meaningful. And could I have accessed the depths of healing that I have without that understanding? Probably not. So it that layer of woo healing has been helpful. And I don't bypass the real human body. So I really do, like, I weave them together. And so if I have an experience in my body, some might call it a symptom. If I have an experience in my body coming up, I look at all the layers. I look at, you know, what am I getting like, what is my vitamin D right now?
Yeah.
What, like, physiologically, what is happening in my body? I can't just manifest it away. I can't just, repeat these affirmations and deny what's happening in my physical body.
Mhm.
So that's been my path, is really, yeah, weaving all that together. The
Mm.
physical, right? The physical, the emotional, the spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you able it sounds like you can somewhat take that approach with your clients and patients?
Depending
Yeah,
on their openness to it, right? And
right.
I'm not gonna impose my beliefs. Obviously, I'm very passionate about, my beliefs, and I'm not gonna impose them. So
Mhm.
often I'm planting seeds. Maybe they'll sprout, maybe they won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I wanted to ask because I noticed on your social media over the last few months you were sharing whales and
Hmm.
like fish, underwater scenery. I'm like, what's the affinity with water? Can you explain that? Because I was really curious and I haven't asked you yet.
Right. Can I explain it? Yeah, let's see if I can. I don't think I've ever been asked that before.
Okay.
So let's see if I can find words. And my relationship with social media is a funny one. Like, it's like a
Mhm.
hot potato. I'm pretty late to the social media world anyways. And then when I joined, it was like, I think I'm here for business, but I'm just kind of expressing myself. Or aren't they the kind of the same thing? What am I talking about? I don't know. So I've been
This
on
is
and off of
very
like a hot potato.
relatable, by the
Right?
way.
And, having a sensitive nervous system, I know I get on there and I just like, I feel it all. I feel everything. And I'm like, no, I got to do my energy practices. So I'm not absorbing so much that's here. And so,
Yes.
yeah, anyways, it's a hot potato. But yeah, so for quite a while, I was in this like almost like meditative practice of posting. My last story of the day was an underwater scene and of a whale or beneath the surface, beneath the water. And so
Mm,
the meaning of this for me is there are many layers. One of the containers that I hold is called beneath the surface. So it's about, and I mean, the name tells you, it's about going beneath what's obvious to the naked eye or to art, right?
mhm,
And so that even just that term beneath the surface has a lot of meaning for me. Water has always been it feels more like home to me than land does.
mm,
It's just, and I so, in this life I've been a competitive swimmer and a synchronized swimmer, and like I've always been in water.
okay.
And when I was diagnosed with this rare genetic condition in adulthood, I'd had it my whole life, but I was diagnosed in adulthood. And one of the reasons it didn't feature more prominently growing up is because I was in water. Like I was in water so much, so my body was held and supported.
Mm,
Yeah. And then, I've done past life regressions and it's just come up for me over and over in lots of weird and wonderful ways that I had a past life in water. I have strong connections with Lemuria. I've, been through a hypnosis where I connected with life as a mermaid. And, there's definitely still a voice in my mind that says that's way too woo. But it feels so true to me that I can't deny it. I can't deny it. It feels so true. And so, yeah, water beneath the surface, sea animals, it feels like home. Yeah.
mm. I will say
Yeah.
those stories when I came across them were a nice little break in the
Yeah.
feed and in the flow. Change the flow, literally.
Change the flow, and that was also
Yeah.
my intent, like, so it was my way of kind of expressing connection with water, but also, to offer to whoever's in my stories, to offer that little reprieve, right? To offer that nervous system.
What it was.
It's not all like, hard-hitting, hard-hitting, hard-hitting news, right? Like, it's like, "Okay, let's just be, let's just breathe, let's just be with water." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I loved it, by the way, 'cause
yeah,
yeah,
okay,
for
well, you know what? Maybe
a
you've inspired me
while,
to bring it back.
like, yeah, I loved it. This was
Yeah.
very peaceful.
Aw, thanks for telling me that, because it's like,
Yeah.
I don't like, because I like social media, I'm like, why am I even posting this? Who's this for anyways?
No, I know.
So
Social
it's, yeah,
media
it's
is
nice
like
to hear that.
can be such a toxic dance sometimes, and I've often wondered, "What am I doing?"
Right?
But yeah, I mean, but
I
then at the
know.
same time, it does have its purpose. It does have its moments
We
too.
connected?
So yeah, and learning. I think there is the element of learning how to create boundaries with it as part of the lesson too, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something, so I was gonna say, because this podcast is obviously chatting with humans. We did make an exception to have Alana on because she is part of the Pleiades star galaxy, but we made an
Yeah.
exception today.
Yeah. I mean, I am human this time round, you know.
Okay, fair. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to ask about your best kept secret,
Hmm.
Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so
No, it
funny.
was
I
so
mean,
no, it was so no, let me just share this
yeah,
because
tell me,
when I
tell
was
me.
at Sovereign Acres, because I was helping build the systems, we were, getting the lead authors geared up for our upcoming publications, and in comes this man, Kevin McNee. And he signs up and he's going to be the lead author for the Sovereign Man series
Yeah.
of the publication. Did not even remotely make a connection that he would have known you even. And then I find out
Hmm.
he's your boyfriend, is your partner.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was just like, Lana, how did we not know this? But then like I started following him on Instagram and I said, okay, there's the connection.
Yeah.
He's such an incredible man doing such incredible work
Mm,
with men, and he's
I
leading his
know.
own publication at the same time
I
as you. Can we hear a little bit about this romance, if you are
It's
open to sharing?
yeah, I am. You know, it's funny. I don't share much in my social media because, again, I don't know what is my relationship with social media. I don't know. Is it
Mm,
personal? Is it professional? Is it both? Is it I don't know. So, in terms, I mean, we have a beautiful relationship and I think but my messaging isn't so much about relationships. So or not I don't know what my messaging is. But anyways, I haven't really shared about it. But he shares about us and me
yeah,
and I've been I've been featured in a lot of his posts
yeah.
because he does speak more about relationships specifically.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess one of the benefits of social media is this is how he and I connected. I mean, not directly on Instagram. I wasn't even on Instagram when he and I first met, but it
Yeah,
was kind of through some of these common circles, right? These
okay.
different containers, and we met, virtually in one of these containers and stayed friends for a very long time, and even kind of distant friends.
Mm,
And then we met in person, and bing, oh, there it was.
there
Like,
were fireworks.
okay, there were fireworks there, but not like you know, like the type of relationship that's like not good for you and it has like a lot of fireworks because there's a lot of like chemistry, but the chemistry is actually trauma or whatever, right? It wasn't that kind of firework, but it was like yeah,
There's depth.
okay,
There's depth
depth.
here.
There's depth. There's depth.
Yeah.
It wasn't yeah. And I had been married for 13 years and two kids and went through a fairly amicable separation, really pretty much as amicable as any separation can be
Hmm.
with my former husband. I never refer to him as my ex because that for me that just sounds kind of violent. So he's
Sure.
not an
Yeah.
ex. He's my former husband, and we're still good friends, and we co-parent
Mm,
quite well together. We separated in 2020. Yeah, so lots happened in 2020, and
yeah.
then yeah, Kevin and I met, and we've been together for about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it. And you're gonna
yeah,
both be putting out books this year.
yeah. That's pretty
Really
neat, hey?
publishing books in the same year with your partner. I think that's a really neat one. I feel like that might
It
be
is
a
pretty
little
neat.
rare. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty neat to be on this journey with him because then we can be
Yeah.
like, "Oh," right? Yeah, kinda
Yeah,
swap
you're
notes and
both
support
go
each other.
moving through it right now. You can kind of
Yeah.
bounce it off each other and you know exactly what the other person in certain terms are navigating, right? Because
Right?
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
being I've got Reclaiming Mental Health coming out here in March, and
Yeah.
I loosely helped support Sarah Serino, our lead, here and there, and I got like a very brief glimpse of like what it is to actually be in
Mm,
each of these chapters. That's
mm,
not a small task,
mhm, mhm,
going through and not only supporting 14 different authors, but then also writing
mhm,
your own chapter at the same time. I'm like,
mhm.
because when I was writing mine in November, that was an ordeal. Like a lot was coming up in that process. So
I
like,
bet.
yeah. So
Yeah. I'm
this
curious, can I
isn't a
ask you a
small
question about
task.
that?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious because this is your second time writing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, yeah, compare, contrast, or are they just you can't even compare and contrast? How were the 2
Yeah.
experiences?
So the first one was I had a desire to write my story in a more chronological sense. Just I wanted to just
Mm,
get it out in like a linear time frame.
yeah.
And that was that I had a desire to do that and express that long before Sovereign 2 came along, but this was like an obvious doorway for me to walk through, albeit in like a very short format to do that. And
Mhm,
that was so necessary and cathartic, and the
mm,
timing couldn't have been better.
mm,
And
mhm,
I love the whole process. Obviously, I made a ton of connections and met through new people through that, and they're
mhm,
enduring relationships now. There that experience was awesome, and then stepping into reclaiming mental health, that was a whole different beast.
mm,
One of my favorite aspects of being able to do that was because I had satiated that chronological
mm,
expression that I was really
mhm,
desiring for a long time.
mhm.
I kinda got to play in a little bit more, but that also did leave it wide open for me to be like, in the initial stages, be like, "Where do I even wanna go with this?" So,
Yeah, wide open
yeah.
pasture.
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of describe it as like being able to floss things a little bit more than I was able to the first publication. So I actually do encourage people, like if they've gone through the process once, especially in like a more generalized sense, or like
Yeah,
doing the writing process in a way that fulfilled something, stepping into it a second time, I highly encourage that because it creates another layer of exploration and writing and like
mhm,
and revealing. So that is was, I guess you could say, a welcomed aspect to it,
mm,
but, it left things wide open in terms of, like, how where am I gonna go with this? And I actually do talk about this on the first episode of this podcast,
mm,
a little bit more in depth, but something that I was just thinking about today because I was clarifying some things with the editor was, uh, had a blog that I started in, like, 2011, and that was, like, shortly before my first episode on set.
mm.
So I was able to pull threads of my blog into
Wow.
this chapter, which was
Yeah.
really, a full honestly, a full circle moment because, I got to meet that woman and that girl because I was in my late 20s at the time. I got to meet with her and have a meeting with her in this writing process to say, like, "Look where we've come," and look at
Wow.
her and then
Wow.
say, "Just
Yeah.
remember, you were breathing me. You were typing me into
Yeah.
existence." So, yeah, it was
Oh, that's
powerful, but it
so powerful.
energetically, it was something else. Yeah.
I almost like, I just got this image of, like, these bookends, right?
Yeah.
That version of yourself writing the blog and the version of you now, and then everything that you experience in between,
Mhm.
and that the bookends talking to each other.
Yes, and I will say, because at the beginning when you were talking more about the grief, I
Mhm.
actually met some grief I was not expecting to recently because I have been stepping
Yeah.
more into using my voice, and
Mhm.
I have this wonderful gift of retrospect, and I realized just in the last few weeks, I'm stepping over a threshold of who I was and what I had to go through, and
Yeah.
there was a great amount of grief attached to the fact that I want to honor what I lived so much, but I can't be in it the way that I was anymore because I can't have that
Oh,
energy. And it was sad because
yeah.
I've held that experience so tightly.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
it wasn't more than traumatic. I also describe it as like some of the best times of my life. I mean,
I
there were these crazy, what's the word? There's a spectrum and there's the great
yeah.
polarities to the emotion of moving through what I did. And I felt a great desire to honor that. But I
Mm.
also needed to be able and give myself permission to release maybe for sure the attachment that I've carried with it until now,
Mm.
until more recently.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, honor it, right? To
Honor it.
honor it and release it.
And yeah, and just be okay with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But grief is interesting, and I personally, I haven't explored it to great depths, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Mhm.
So when I'm learning to,
Mhm.
as they say, name it to tame it, I'm learning
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
identify
Yeah.
what an
Yeah.
emotion is and like being able to say, okay, that is grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's coming into greater and greater clarity for me in my own life as well. And, certainly as a therapist, I've been in and out of holding space and navigating and learning about grief. And it's coming into greater and greater clarity even still. Like it's like this learning is nonstop, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
human life. We're always learning and expanding. And, I at least in my own life, I'm tracing so much back to grief, like that kind of like that original grief of disconnection,
Mm-hmm.
of not being emotionally attuned to and being emotionally neglected in childhood. Like I can just trace so much back to that original grief.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's, well known out there, like that not enough wound. Like so many people can identify with that not enough wound, not
Mm-hmm.
enough, too much, too sensitive. And I just feel curious because this is how it's taking shape in my own life. I feel curious for how many people who have this not enough wound, if their origin story is disconnection from their caregiver. Because like, where do we
Mm,
learn that we're not enough? When was that idea ever planted? Because and if caregiver doesn't meet us in a way that validates and supports us and sees us, we're going to not feel like enough. And then
yeah.
that story, that core belief is going to follow us through our whole life. So it's got wide-reaching tentacles, you know?
It really does. I've been
Yeah.
going back to this. I've gone back to this many times for myself because I've been trying, obviously looking back on my childhood and like, what were some of these things rooted in? And honestly,
Mhm.
it can be something as, for me at least, as mundane as realizing, um, I had to let go of my mother attachment in a certain way. Like there was a
Mm.
moment, mom
Mm.
couldn't tuck me in
Mm.
anymore. There
Yeah.
was a moment mom wasn't like, I mean, this is it feels so mundane saying it, like, 'cause
Mm.
it's not traumatic, but it's
Mhm.
like when I was young, I had to start doing my own laundry.
Mhm.
It's this
Mhm.
when we are either, I think, being
Mhm.
forced to grow up is one thing, but when we're just naturally
Yeah.
in this progression of we're too big to be held anymore,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
those things can impact us as well,
They
even
do.
if they're not this traumatic event.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, grief is synonymous with life, and we often think, I don't know, it seems to me that as a society, we often think of grief as like this big kind of either a singular event or a very obvious event, but really grief is threaded throughout our life, like our whole life. And so this is what I was really tuning into when the opportunity to be the lead came in for me. I was really tuning into these many, 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 many threads of grief woven throughout our lives, that maybe are never named. They're never acknowledged, and
Yeah.
it's not about being a victim and a woe is me or anything like that. But it's like, yeah, that time that, yeah, you weren't able to attune to me, you weren't able to whatever that. I mean, and maybe it's not even communicating it to the other, but it's about bringing compassion for yourself, acknowledging like that was hard, right? That was, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think of the grief of awakening, how many
Mm.
identities, behaviors and all that. We wake up to them, recognize, oh, these were just here to protect me and now I don't need them anymore. And so in a sense, we're up leveling, but there's still a grief. There's still a grief of
Yeah.
dropping these identities and because they did serve.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think grief is so insidious and it's threaded throughout our whole life. And when it goes unnamed, and repressed, it accumulates in our bodies, creates
Mhm.
illness, and in our world, then creates war. I mean, maybe it's a bit grandiose to say repressed grief is the cause of war, but I might even say that. I might even say that, you
Yeah.
know?
I think there's
Yeah.
definitely some accuracy to that. Like,
Yeah.
I think this book is gonna help people learn to acknowledge the grief that maybe they haven't in their own lives. Because
Yeah.
it's a common term. Everyone knows the word grief, but
Hmm.
like you said, like we I think it's very naturally and easy to equate it to when someone dies or when
Hmm.
something dies. But
Hmm.
those threads
Hmm.
that you're speaking to are like there's many things that are constantly dying. We live in this
Yes.
constantly changing, never
Yeah.
static environment. So of course we're going to
Yes.
feel those threads as they die, and those are many moments of grief.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so
Yeah.
to become really good friends with it because
Yeah.
it's happening with each breath, it's happening all the time. We are,
Mhm.
right, living
Yes.
and dying, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, to become really good friends with it. Yeah.
That's so well said.
It's something that just came in for me as we were talking, and I know we're getting close to time, so we'll keep it kind of tight. But
Sure.
I was so this pendant that I'm wearing,
Mhm.
it's a horse.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had this horse since I was 6 years old. And I've moved many times and I don't know how I've kept this horse. But it has stayed with me for 40 years. I'm 46, so it's been with me for a while. And with the year of the fire horse, that energy is something that speaks to me. And so I'm like, where is that horse? So I dug through my drawer and I found it miraculously. Something that I feel is important to name. It's been important for me to acknowledge, anyways, is, I feel like that, especially on social media, there's this like, I don't know, I feel like there's this societal pressure to like, you're the fire horse, come out of the gates running. Like, this is the carpe diem,
Yeah.
seize the moment. You got to just come out with fire and clarity and structure and vision, and it all has to happen now. Maybe
Mhm.
that's just my
No, that's
fearful voice
definitely how
speaking, but
it's been feeling, and I've been
right?
trying to sift through that, like, what does that actually mean on a personal level, right?
Right, me too. I've been trying to sift through that, and what came in for me, and often, my guidance is found in meditation. And so, what was coming through for me was like horses. Horses also walk. Horses are very intuitive, and
Yes.
so right, highly intuitive beings, and so to trust, to lean in your intuition and trust that if your horse is walking right now, that's okay.
Mhm.
And for those who have been shedding, like the year of the snake, right, have been shedding a lot, it's going to take a little time to recalibrate. And that's okay. Like just because it was February, what was it? February 17th was Chinese New Year. What does that even matter, really? So
Yeah.
I felt like it was important to kind of take some of that pressure off because I know for
Mhm.
myself, when that pressure's applied, I just freeze and just like, it's nothing happens.
Yeah.
So coming into that, appreciation of the intuition of the horse, that horses walk, it's okay. It's all okay. Yeah.
Mhm. No, I love
Yeah.
that. I definitely felt that influx of information that was coming through leading up to, I
Yeah.
mean, even before the calendar New Year.
Mhm.
I was like feeling a certain level of overwhelm inside of that energy because I'm like, seems a little extra.
Yeah.
Like why are we imposing this additional pressure on ourselves when honestly,
Mhm.
like, I mean, obviously there's going to be a buzz
Mhm.
online and there's going to be what we were seeing happening because that's what
Yeah.
social media is for essentially.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough compounding with just the energy itself that's there
Mm,
that added another level of noise. So I was really
mm,
like trying to filter for myself, like, what's the relevancy and like, how do I apply this? And
mhm.
I do
Mhm.
just find like I
Mhm.
naturally am more intuitively like move with the astrological shifts. Like I can just feel them. And I don't
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
do you feel that sense as
Yeah.
well when they
Yeah,
shift?
I do.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
very for me, it's slight, it's minor, but I usually
Mhm.
feel like and then they always talk about the window leading up and after, depending on what the transits are. But, like, there
Mhm.
is always this kind of, like, slight ramp up and, like, I think attuning more to the natural
Mhm.
changes and progressions that are happening and just using maybe the dabbles of social media to kind of guide the messaging based on what's resonating is, like, the best approach
Yeah.
with that. But you bring up such a good point. I love that you have been carrying this
Yeah.
necklace for, like, how many years?
40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you get to carry the
Yeah.
energy with it, like, that you've had since a
Yeah.
six-year-old around your neck for
Yeah.
the next well, obviously, for as long as you'd like,
Yeah.
but into
Yeah.
this I think
Yeah.
this is a big year, big transitional year, so
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is too. And to not get so caught up in that one freezes, because I think that's a common response. And, with all the fire horse messaging coming out, and social media is really loud and polarized, and like, I heard what I thought, I heard like kind of like tendrils of this like production oriented society coming through, right? Like that. And I think that's what we're kind of shifting away from, more into the being and out of the doing, right? But I thought I could hear a little bit of that there, this like, you gotta go now.
Yeah.
If you don't go now, it's not going to happen
You're
for
gonna
you.
miss the window.
Right?
Yeah.
You're going to miss the window, and
No,
that's it for your life.
no, it doesn't quite
So,
look like
yeah,
that.
to not hear these messages through fear is so important.
Yes, so well said. So well said.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping you have an incredible fire horse, however that looks and
Yeah.
feels for you, just so long as the horse is, let's hope the horse is moving, I suppose.
Yeah. 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 You too. Yeah. Yeah. I do feel the momentum coming, right? It's coming.
No, of course. Alana, I just want
Yeah.
to say thank you so much for coming on Chatting with Humans. I know this is something that you are passionate about, is chatting with
Yeah.
humans. And
Yeah.
I was really thankful for that you jumped up at the opportunity to come chat with me, because obviously this is all new and fresh and different, for me at
Yeah.
least. So
Oh,
I
I
really
just love that
appreciate
you're
you.
doing this. I think this is what's really needed, is real life conversations, unscripted, just two humans talking. And yeah, maybe social media is the place where these conversations will be shared, but that, yeah, we're just getting together for tea and chatting, right?
Yeah.
Like it's yeah, I think this is a really important movement that you're doing here.
Thank you. And I was going to
Yeah.
say one of my least favorite things about this process is chopping down the long form into something that can be,
Man, yeah.
consumed on social media, because it really takes
Mhm.
away from the
Mhm.
potency of what comes through in the long form, but it has to be done. But if you have the time to listen, do the full experience, because that's where the magic is for sure. So yeah.
So true. So
Yeah. Well,
true.
thank you so
So nice
much.
chatting with you, Dee.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to see your book.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see yours.
Yes.
Yeah.